He only went next door to return a simple screwdriver. But the moment the neighbor saw him, he whispered, "You picked the perfect night. Because tonight something terrible is going to happen in that house." The words still echoed in Daniel Harris's mind like they had attached themselves to his thoughts, refusing to leave. Rain kept falling harder now, turning the quiet neighborhood into something distant and unreal. The world felt slightly tilted, like reality itself had shifted a few degrees to the left and no one else noticed except him. Daniel stood frozen on the porch of house number 15, the screwdriver still in his hand, feeling suddenly ridiculous for holding something so ordinary in a moment that felt anything but normal. Leonard Gray's grip on his arm was tight, too tight. His fingers were trembling, not from cold, from fear. Daniel looked at him, trying to process what was happening. "Just tell me what's going on," Daniel said, his voice lower now, cautious. "You're scaring me for no reason." "It's just your house." Leonard didn't respond immediately. His eyes stayed fixed on the door behind him, as if it was no longer just wood and metal, but something alive, something watching them back. Then he whispered again, slower this time. "My wife died in that house 3 years ago tonight." Daniel felt a strange heaviness in his chest. He didn't know what reaction he was supposed to have. Sympathy? Confusion? Fear? It all mixed together into something uncomfortable. "I'm sorry," Daniel said quietly. "But what does that have to do with?" A sudden creak cut him off. Both men went silent. The porch light flickered once, twice, and then died completely. Darkness swallowed them. Only the rain remained, loud and relentless, like the sky itself was trying to drown the world. Then, from inside the house, a soft sound. A chair dragging slowly across the floor. Daniel stiffened. Leonard's breath stopped. "That wasn't there before," Leonard whispered. Daniel didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the front door. It was slightly open now, just a crack. He was sure it had been closed a moment ago. "I didn't open it," Leonard said quickly, almost defensive, as if accusing the door itself of betrayal. The screwdriver in Daniel's hand suddenly felt heavier, more useless than ever. A memory flashed in Daniel's mind, Emily standing in the doorway earlier, holding her broken toy, asking if he would come back soon. He swallowed hard. "I need to go back home," Daniel said. Leonard grabbed him again, this time more urgently. "No," he said firmly. "If you leave now, it'll follow you." Daniel pulled his arm away. "Stop saying things like that." "There's nothing following me." But even as he said it, his voice betrayed him. Because deep down, something in the air felt wrong, not imaginary wrong, not fear-based wrong, but reality-breaking wrong. Another sound came from inside the house, footsteps, slow, measured, coming closer to the door. Daniel stepped back instinctively. Leonard didn't move. Then the voice came again, soft, feminine, familiar in a way that didn't make sense. "Leonard!" The voice paused, then continued gently. "Why did you leave me outside?" Daniel felt his stomach twist. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. Like someone speaking after waking up from a long sleep. His eyes filled with something between grief and terror. Daniel turned toward him. "That's your wife?" he asked, unsure if he even wanted the answer. Leonard shook his head slowly. "No," he whispered. Then, after a pause that felt too long to be natural, he added, "My wife never spoke like that." The door creaked open a little wider, and then it stopped. Not forcing, just waiting for them to decide what to do. Daniel's heart was beating so hard he could feel it in his throat. Every instinct screamed at him to leave. To run, to go back to Emily, but something about Leonard's expression stopped him. It wasn't just fear, it was guilt, deep, buried guilt. "What happened here?" Daniel asked quietly. Leonard swallowed hard. His voice cracked slightly when he spoke. "She didn't die the way people think she did." A long silence followed. Even the rain seemed to soften for a moment, like the world was leaning in to listen. Leonard continued, barely above a whisper. "It was an accident. That's what I told everyone. That's what I told myself. She fell down the stairs. I tried to reach her, but I was too late." His hands trembled violently now. "But that night, I heard her calling me from upstairs after she was already gone." Daniel felt a chill run through him. Leonard shook his head quickly, like trying to escape the memory. I told myself it was grief, stress, shock, anything but what I actually heard. He looked at Daniel now, his eyes were wet. But every year on this night, I hear it again. Daniel frowned slightly. You hear what? Leonard didn't answer immediately. Then he said it, slowly, carefully, asking me to open the door. A loud thud came from inside the house. The sound was closer now, much closer. As if whatever was inside had stepped into the hallway. Daniel took another step back. This is insane, he muttered. People don't just come back. Then suddenly the door opened wider on its own. Not all the way, just enough. Enough for darkness to spill out like something physical, and then they saw it, a figure standing inside. A woman-shaped silhouette, still silent. Facing them, Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The figure didn't move, but the voice came again, closer now, almost right at the threshold. Leonard, a pause. Then softly, I've been waiting. Daniel's mind screamed at him that this wasn't real. It couldn't be, no explanation made sense, no logic held up, but his body reacted anyway. His hand tightened around the screwdriver without him realizing it. Leonard took one shaky step forward. Daniel grabbed him. Don't, he whispered urgently. But Leonard didn't stop. His eyes were locked on the figure. Tears rolled down his face now. I'm sorry, he whispered. The figure tilted its head slightly, like it was listening. Then it spoke again. You left me in the dark, like the warmth had been drained out of the air. And then something changed. Just one step. But it was enough for the dim porch light from the street to reveal part of her face. Or what looked like a face. Daniel's stomach turned cold. It was wrong, not injured. Not bloody, just incomplete. Like a memory trying to become a person and failing halfway. Leonard whispered something under his breath. Daniel couldn't hear it, but it sounded like a prayer, pointing not at Daniel, but at Leonard. You promised, it said. Leonard dropped to his knees. I didn't mean it, he said, voice breaking completely. I swear I didn't mean it. Daniel stepped back further now. His mind was spinning. This wasn't a robbery, not a person, not anything normal. Whatever this was, it wasn't finished with Leonard. And then the figure turned its head slowly toward Daniel. He felt it before he fully understood it, that sudden pressure in the air. The voice changed slightly, still soft, but now curious. You're not him. Daniel's breath stopped. The figure took one step closer to the doorway, and Daniel finally saw it clearly. Its eyes weren't just dark, they were empty. Like looking into a space that shouldn't exist, Daniel's instincts screamed at him again. Run, now, but his legs didn't move because behind him, from the direction of his home, a child's voice. Dad? Daniel turned slowly. The street behind him was empty, but the voice had been real, soft, familiar. Emily, his heart dropped instantly. No, he whispered. Leonard lifted his head slightly, and the figure in the doorway whispered something almost too quiet to hear. Now it has two doors open. The porch light from Daniel's own house flickered far away in the distance, once, twice, then stayed on. And in that moment, whatever had been inside Leonard's house was no longer only inside it, and the figure stepped forward again, closer to both of them, as if it had finally decided which one to go to first. He only went next door to return a simple screwdriver, because tonight something terrible is going to happen in that house. Daniel's breath didn't return properly after that. It felt stuck somewhere between his chest and throat, like even his body didn't know how to process what it was witnessing. The rain kept falling, heavier now, slamming against the street like it was trying to erase everything happening on it. The porch, the house, the man kneeling beside him. Even the figure standing inside the doorway, everything looked half real, like a nightmare pretending to be a neighborhood. Daniel slowly turned his head back toward Leonard. Tell me what that is, Daniel said, voice tight, almost breaking. Right now. Leonard didn't answer immediately. He was still on his knees. Then he whispered, barely audible. It's not supposed to be seen like this. Daniel felt his stomach drop. What does that mean? He asked sharply. What do you mean, not supposed to be seen? Leonard shook his head. I never invited it. I never opened anything. A soft creak came again from the house. The door moved slightly wider. and with it, the darkness inside seemed to breathe. The figure remained still, but the air around it changed. Heavier, thicker, like reality itself was becoming uncomfortable. A pause. "I forgave you," Leonard flinched violently. Daniel noticed it immediately. That wasn't fear, that was recognition. "That's not your wife," Daniel said again, more firmly now, as if saying it louder would make it true. Leonard laughed once. A broken, empty sound. "No," he whispered. "It's worse than that." Daniel stepped back slightly. "What are you talking about?" Leonard finally looked away from the figure and up at Daniel. His eyes were shattered now. Not just scared, destroyed. "I used to hear her voice after she died," he said. "Every night." Same words, same tone. I thought it was grief. He swallowed hard. "But then I started responding." Daniel's face tightened. "You what?" Leonard nodded slowly. "I would talk back. Beg her to stop, apologize. Sometimes I would even argue with her, like she was still here." The rain suddenly felt louder. Leonard continued, voice shaking. "And one night, I opened the door upstairs because I was sure she was calling me." Daniel felt his grip tighten around the screwdriver again. "And?" he asked cautiously. Leonard's voice dropped to almost nothing. "And I saw something standing in the hallway that looked like her." A pause. "But it wasn't her face I remember." Another pause. "This doesn't make sense," he said. "People don't open doors to things." Leonard shook his head again. "That's what I thought too." A sudden sound cut through them. From inside the house, a soft, dragging noise. Closer now. Not random, intentional. The figure in the doorway took another step forward. This time it crossed the threshold. It wasn't fully formed. It looked like a person shaped out of memory instead of flesh. Edges of it blurred slightly, like reality couldn't hold it properly. Its movements were too smooth. Too calm, like it didn't need muscles to move, only intention. It turned its head toward Leonard again. "You said you would stay?" it whispered. Leonard dropped his head instantly. "I didn't mean it," he said again. "I was scared. I didn't understand." The figure tilted its head. "I understand everything you feel." Daniel took another step back. His instincts were screaming now. This wasn't grief. This wasn't hallucination. This was something responding to emotion itself. Something shaped by it. The figure slowly raised its hand again and pointed, but not at Leonard this time. At Daniel. The air shifted instantly. Daniel froze. "What? What do you want?" he asked, voice cracking despite himself. The figure didn't answer immediately. Instead, it took a slow step toward him and said softly, "You opened the second door." Daniel frowned. "I didn't open anything." But even as he said it, his mind flashed. The screwdriver, borrowed, taken from inside Leonard's house days ago, a small detail. Something meaningless, something forgotten. The figure continued. "You brought it back." Daniel's chest tightened. "That's not an open door," he said. "That's just returning something." The figure stepped closer again. And for the first time, its voice changed. Not softer, not louder, just clearer. "You don't understand what belongs where." Leonard suddenly shouted, "Don't let IT associate you!" Daniel snapped his head toward him. "What does that mean?" Leonard was panicking now. "Names, objects, places, it connects things through them. That's how it spreads." But before he could finish, even the rain seemed to pause for a fraction of a second. Then it spoke. Slowly. "Leonard." A pause. The figure stepped forward. "I remember now." Daniel felt his entire body go cold. "Remember what?" he whispered. The figure turned slightly toward him again and said, "I remember being inside before I was outside." The porch light from Daniel's house in the distance flickered again, but this time it didn't stop flickering. "Go," he said urgently to Daniel. "Go back to your house. Now, don't stay here another second." Daniel didn't move. "Not without answers," he said. Leonard grabbed him. "There are nitrogen monoxide answers, only escape." But it was too late. The figure stepped fully onto the porch now, and the wooden boards beneath it creaked. Even though it barely weighed anything, it turned its head slowly toward Daniel, and for the first time it smiled, not warmly, not humanly. "You're afraid," it said gently. Daniel couldn't respond. His throat felt locked, The figure stepped closer and whispered, "That's how I know you're real." A sudden sound came from behind Daniel. A small one, a footstep. He turned instantly, and his heart stopped. Because standing at the edge of the street, Leonard screamed, "Nitrogen monoxide! Don't look at don't acknowledge IT!" But Daniel was already moving. "Emily!" he shouted again, stepping forward. The figure behind him spoke softly. Now it has something to follow. Daniel didn't care anymore. He ran straight into the rain, toward the child-shaped figure standing in the distance. Behind him, Leonard's voice faded into panic. "You just gave IT a path?" The last thing Daniel heard before everything blurred was the soft voice behind him in the porch darkness. Calm, almost satisfied. "I like when they choose what to lose first." And then the streetlight near Emily flickered once and went out completely. Darkness swallowed everything. Daniel kept running, and then he saw the child turn its head slowly toward him. But something about the movement wasn't Emily, and in that moment, he realized he might have just made the worst mistake of his life. He only went next door to return a simple screwdriver. But the moment the neighbor saw him, he whispered, "You picked the perfect night." And now Daniel was running straight into that something. The rain hit his face like needles as he sprinted across the wet street. His lungs burned, his heart hammered violently, but none of it mattered, not when he saw her. A small figure standing under the broken streetlight. His daughter Emily. "Emily!" Daniel shouted again, his voice breaking apart. "Stay there! Don't move!" But the figure didn't respond like a child should. It didn't run toward him. It didn't cry. It just stood there, still, waiting. And something about that stillness felt wrong, too controlled, too quiet, like the world had paused and forgotten how children behave. Behind him, Leonard's voice echoed faintly from the porch, swallowed by rain and distance. "Don't approach IT! It's using her?" But Daniel couldn't hear clearly anymore. Or maybe he didn't want to, because fear had already turned into something worse. Hope, the kind of hope that blinds judgment. Step by step, he moved closer. "Emily, it's me, Dad." The figure tilted its head slightly, and for a moment, Daniel saw her face. Or thought he did. Same small frame. Same hair, same posture she had when she was nervous. His chest tightened painfully. "Thank God," he whispered. But then, the streetlight flickered again, once, twice, and for a split second of light, Daniel saw it. The face wasn't fully hers. The eyes were wrong, too still, too deep, like looking into empty water that reflected nothing back. Daniel stopped mid-step. His voice lowered. "Emily?" The figure took one step forward and said softly, "Dad?" Daniel froze. His relief almost collapsed him. But something inside him resisted, because that voice, it sounded like her. But it didn't feel like her. Leonard had followed him. "Daniel," Leonard shouted, "stop. Don't let it learn your attachment." Daniel turned slightly, anger and panic mixing. "What are you talking about?" "That's my daughter." Leonard grabbed his arm hard. "No," he said firmly, shaking him. "It's wearing your daughter like a doorway." Daniel shoved him away. "Stop saying insane things." Leonard's eyes widened with desperation. "Then ask it something only she would know." Silence hit Daniel like a slap. For a moment, the rain felt quieter. His breathing slowed. His mind fought itself. Then he turned back. "Emily," he said carefully, "what did we eat on your birthday last year?" The figure paused, just for a second, then answered, "Cake." Daniel blinked. Relief almost rushed in, but Leonard grabbed his shoulder instantly. "That's too general," he hissed. "Ask something only you would remember." Daniel swallowed hard. His hands trembled. "Emily," he said again, softer now, "what did you break last week that you didn't tell me about?" The figure tilted its head. The silence stretched. Longer this time. Too long. Then it answered. The toy." Daniel's chest tightened again. That was true. But not specific enough. Leonard leaned in urgently. "It's guessing," he whispered. "It's learning patterns from your emotions." Daniel shook his head, voice rising. No, that's her." But even as he said it, doubt started creeping in. Because the figure took another step closer. and now Daniel could see it clearly under the flickering light. The edges of her shape weren't stable. They blurred slightly when she moved. And then she spoke again, softly. "Dad, why are you scared of me?" She asked for help. She asked for comfort. But she never questioned his fear. Daniel stepped forward slowly. His voice cracked. "Because I don't know if it's really you." The figure smiled again. That same unnatural learning smile. And said, "You don't need to know." The air dropped colder. Leonard suddenly whispered behind him. "It's locking onto certainty." Daniel frowned. "What?" Leonard pointed at the figure. "The more you believe it is her, the more real it becomes." Daniel shook his head in confusion. "That makes no sense." Leonard snapped. "Neither does grief, but it still changes people." A distant thunder rolled. The streetlight above them flickered violently again, and for a split second, the figure looked less stable, like it was struggling to hold form. Daniel noticed it. "Wait," he whispered. "It reacts to doubt?" Leonard's eyes widened slightly. "Yes," he said quickly. "Doubt weakens it. Belief strengthens it." Daniel turned fully toward the figure again. His breathing changed. This time, he didn't step forward. He stepped back. "Emily," he said carefully. "Say something only you would say?" The figure paused again, longer. The streetlight buzzed loudly now, flickering between light and shadow. Then the figure spoke, but the voice changed slightly, not fully human. Not fully childlike, something in between. "I don't like the dark in my room." Daniel froze. His mind flashed instantly. True, Emily hated sleeping without a nightlight. But Leonard suddenly shouted. But Leonard grabbed him again. "If you confirm her identity even once fully, it anchors permanently." The figure took another step forward. And this time, it was closer than before, too close. Its face was clearer now, and Daniel's heart shattered slightly. Because it looked like Emily, almost perfectly, almost painfully. But something behind the eyes wasn't his daughter. It was imitation, a reflection that didn't understand what it was copying. "Dad," it said again, this time softer, almost pleading. "Why won't you hug me?" Daniel trembled. His entire body wanted to move forward. Every instinct of fatherhood screamed at him. But Leonard's grip tightened like a chain. And then the most terrifying thing happened. From behind Daniel, a second voice spoke, small, fragile, real. "Dad?" He turned his head, and standing near the broken fence of his own house was Emily, his real daughter, pajamas soaked from rain, holding her small broken toy, eyes wide with confusion and fear. "Dad, what's going on?" she whispered. Daniel's world shattered instantly. He looked at the figure in front of him, then at the real child behind him, two Emilys, one impossible, one real. But his mind couldn't separate them fast enough. The figure smiled again and whispered, "Now you have to choose." The streetlight exploded in a burst of sparks. Everything went dark. And in that darkness, both Emilys spoke at the same time. "Dad?" And Daniel stood frozen between a child who might be his daughter and a daughter who might no longer be alone. He only went next door to return a simple screwdriver. But the moment the neighbor saw him, he whispered, "You picked the perfect night." Because tonight, something terrible is going to happen in that house. And now Daniel was standing in the middle of that nightmare, with no way out. The streetlight was dead. The rain was louder than ever, and darkness had finally stopped feeling like absence. It felt alive. Daniel couldn't breathe properly, not because of fear alone, but because of what stood in front of him, two Emilys. One in front of him, one behind him, both saying his name. "Dad." Same voice, same innocence, same fragile sound that used to make him feel like everything in the world was still okay. But now it was a weapon. Daniel's hands shook violently. His mind refused to accept reality. "No," he whispered. "This is impossible." Behind him, Leonard's voice came low and urgent. "Don't choose fast," he said. "That's what it wants." Daniel turned slightly. "What does it want from me?" He shouted, "Just tell me!" Leonard's face was pale, drenched in rain. "It doesn't want you," he said. "It wants certainty." Daniel frowned. "That makes no sense." Leonard stepped closer. "It feeds on decisions that feel absolute. The moment you believe something fully, it becomes real enough to stay." A cold silence fell. Only rain, only breathing. Only two children standing in impossible positions. Daniel slowly looked at the Emily in front of him. The one from the street. Her face was almost perfect. Too perfect. Like a memory sharpened by repetition. She took one step forward. "Dad," she whispered again. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Daniel's chest tightened. Then he turned slowly. To the Emily behind him, his real daughter, soaked, shivering, confused. "Dad." "I came out because I heard you shouting," she said softly. "Who is that?" Daniel's throat closed. This was no longer fear. This was breaking. Both Emilys stepped forward at the same time, and that's when Leonard shouted, "Stop moving!" Everything froze. Even the rain felt like it hesitated for half a second. Leonard pointed at the Emily in front. The one that appeared first don't respond to it emotionally. Then he pointed at the real Emily. And the real one don't confirm her either. Daniel stared at him in shock. "What? She's my daughter." Leonard shook his head violently. "That's exactly how it traps you. It uses recognition." The Emily in front of Daniel tilted her head and smiled softly. "Dad," she said. "He doesn't understand us." Daniel's stomach dropped. Because that sentence, it wasn't just imitation, it was adaptation, it was learning. Leonard whispered urgently, "It's evolving faster than I thought." Daniel turned sharply. "What do we do then?" Leonard's voice cracked. "You don't choose either." A pause. Then he added, "You break the connection completely." Daniel frowned. "Connection?" Leonard pointed at the screwdriver in Daniel's hand. "Objects, memories, emotional anchors. That screwdriver came from my house. It linked you here." "That's how it followed you." Daniel looked at it. His hand trembled. "You're saying this thing came because of a tool?" Leonard nodded. "It starts small, a borrowed object, a remembered voice, a repeated thought, then it builds pathways." The Emily in front took another step. Now she was closer than before, too close. Her voice softened again. "Dad, don't listen to him." Behind Daniel, the real Emily stepped forward too. "Dad, I'm scared." Daniel dropped to his knees slightly. His head hurt, his vision blurred. Both voices pulling him in opposite directions. Leonard shouted again, "Don't respond to either." And the other looked exactly like her. He whispered, "I can't." The Emily in front smiled wider and said, "Then choose me." The real Emily's voice cracked. "Dad, please." And something inside Daniel broke, not fear, not confusion, but helpless love. He looked at the Emily in front, then behind and whispered, "I don't know." And that was the mistake. The moment he admitted uncertainty, the air changed instantly. The figure in front of him began to stabilize, becoming clearer, stronger, more real. Leonard's eyes widened in horror. "No, you gave it space." The Emily in front stepped closer, and now her voice was no longer soft. "It was certain. You chose me." Daniel shook his head violently. "No, I didn't. But the world didn't care anymore. Because certainty doesn't come from truth. It comes from acceptance." The Emily in front reached out her hand, and Daniel felt it, a pull, like gravity shifting, like reality deciding where it belonged. Behind him, the real Emily screamed, "Dad!" That scream shattered something in him. He turned instantly. "Emily!" But as soon as he looked at her, the figure in front moved, fast, too fast, and grabbed his wrist. The moment contact happened, everything stopped. The rain froze mid-air. The streetlight flickered but didn't complete the blink. Even Leonard's voice disappeared. Only Daniel and the figure remained in a strange, suspended silence. The Emily-like figure leaned closer and whispered, "Now I can stay." Daniel tried to pull away, but couldn't. His body wasn't responding properly, like his identity was being rewritten. "What are you?" he whispered. The figure paused, then answered softly, "I am what you don't reject fast enough." A ripple moved through the air, and Daniel saw something horrifying. The figure was no longer just Emily-shaped. It was becoming defined by him, his memories, his fears, his love, his guilt, all forming its edges. Behind him, faintly, Leonard's voice returned like breaking through static. "Daniel!" "You're anchoring IT," Daniel shouted back. "How do I stop IT?" Leonard screamed, "Reject IT completely, not with doubt, with denial." Daniel's breathing broke. He looked at the figure. It smiled softly, waiting, patient, knowing, and then Daniel did the hardest thing a father could do. He whispered, "You are not my daughter." The world shattered instantly. The figure's smile stopped. Its face flickered violently. The grip on his wrist loosened. Leonard shouted, "Now, run!" Daniel collapsed backward as time returned violently. The rain slammed down again. The streetlight flickered back to life. The illusion broke like glass cracking through reality. The figure staggered. Its voice distorted. "Dad!" Daniel stood instantly. "No," he said loudly. "You are not her." The figure screamed softly like sound being erased rather than produced, and then it began to fade. Not disappear, unravel, like it had lost permission to exist. Behind Daniel, the real Emily ran forward. "Dad!" He turned instantly and grabbed her. Held her tightly. For the first time all night he felt something real, warm, solid, human, but over her shoulder he saw Leonard. And Leonard's face was not relief, it was horror. Because behind them the house door was still open. And from inside the darkness, another voice whispered, calm, patient, learning. "You found a stronger belief." Daniel froze. Leonard whispered, "It's not over." And in the doorway of house number 15, something new began to form again. Not Emily, not Leonard's wife. Something that had learned how to survive rejection by becoming something else, and this time, it already knew Daniel's name.